It's not going to be possible for these people that are charging you guys hardly anything to actually spend any sort of quality time towards your brand to give you a quality service.
We charge premium compared to the market rate, but I think this allows a responsible number of accounts. You need to ask yourself, can that team help me achieve my goals quicker, more efficiently, sustainably at just 13 hours a month? Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. Today, we're going to be explaining why getting the best deal is the absolute worst thing for your brand. What's up, Taylor?
That was aggressive. I love it. What a start.
Yeah, we're going to be getting aggressive today. So context, I think more than you, Taylor, I'm hearing this because I'm, in sales. I'm on these sales calls. I'm bringing the deals in. I'm also getting the deals turned down. And there's reasons why. And I'm seeing the brands make the same dumb mistake over and over, and it's killing their growth. And so I'm going to continue the aggressive nature here. But essentially, shopping for agencies, like you're trying to get the best bulk deal at Costco, for example, it's sort of setting the stage of a race to the bottom. So, I think when we were first starting out, or even 10 years ago, like there's just less people in the marketing space or in like running Facebook ads, for example. But now we're constantly competing against 5 to 10 different agencies, I would assume. I don't always get that number, but at least 2 to 3 to 5 before people are making a call. And so competition's healthy. We've never been afraid of it, but it has created sort of a race to the bottom on pricing in some ways where they're offering the same service, but at a fraction of the cost. This episode comes from sometimes being turned down for very low entry fees, $2,500 for multiple media buyers, $4,000 for, a senior strategist and a designer and 2 media buyers. And
how's that possible?
Well, we're gonna break that down today. So I think what you were saying before this, when we were kind of going through like how we're going to actually break this down and show the audience just some agency economics, you get what you pay for. Always, no exceptions.
Yeah, get what you pay for. If you're going to get a cheap cost, it's not going to be the best service at the end of the day.
Yeah, so I think price obviously is a factor, but I think what we've always said is like if people are making it about price and they want to work with you, they're going to negotiate. But making a decision purely on price, I think, is a very, very poor decision. And we've had people got an email yesterday, checked in a couple months, like back in January, he went with one of these cheap options that we're going to be kind of describing as the hypothetical. Sent an email follow-up yesterday, and he's like, wow, that was incredible timing. And it was a terrible experience. Felt like I knew more than them.
No surprise.
Yeah. So it's entirely predictable. So I think the mission today, guys, is simple. We want to pull the curtain back on how agencies actually work. And I think once you understand the economics, right, like you won't make a decision based on price alone today. So I think, and a lot of this, again, like this is not theoretical. These are actual numbers that determine whether your campaigns are going to succeed or your brand is going to succeed. And when you see the numbers, I think hopefully you'll make a decision not just on price again, and maybe have hesitations when you hear is this too good to be true? It probably is. So any comments on your side, Taylor, from like what you've heard or experienced?
I mean, it's just poverty mindset if you're going with the cheapest option, right? Like when you look at your P&L, you're just saying, oh, my current agency is $20,000 and I'm trying to make that $5,000. And now I'm going to make up $15,000 of profit. Like, no, you're not. No, you're not. Your top line revenue is about to go way down. And now your cost as a percentage of that revenue is probably going to go up, even though your dollar amount cost went down by $15,000. Like living in that poverty mindset, you're replacing quality work with very poor work. And that's not going to benefit you. If you're going to work with somebody that you're going to pay money that they deserve, and they're going to give you the time that you deserve in return, it's going to lead to growth for everyone. Or the idea is that cost as a percentage of your top line revenue is actually less as you guys continue to grow alongside one another. So get out of poverty mindset. That's my comment.
I love it. All right. So what are we looking at here for people that are YouTube watchers of our podcast, or if for audio, I'll describe what this is. But essentially, it's a simple Google sheet. We're just looking at junior media buyer, annual salary, $65K. We pay our people more than this, but I'm talking about entry-level employee that is making, maybe their first gig out of college type thing. Monthly salary, how that breaks down into $5,417. But then that is not the total cost of this person on a monthly basis, right? Like you have your burden. So this note here is, healthcare benefits, equipment, training costs, office space, everything else. This is not even considering your time costs, the upfront training to get this employee up to speed to start servicing clients, which depending on how you guys media buy. But again, we're talking about, well, I'll digress from there. But there is going to be some training of this person to start servicing clients. So, okay, what does this actually look like when we actually start looking at from a revenue target? So like on this individual employee, right? Here's where it gets interesting. Like a healthy agency, you're going to want a 20 to 30% profit margin on that person, right? Like that's not greedy. That's just sustainable business, like per pod, per team. Like, and this is talking like, this is not even considering before even the owners pay themselves. So this 30% margin on a team might even be worse net profit for the agency. So more like 10 to 15%, right? So like when you're looking at this individual media buyer, they need to generate an additional $3,000. So you essentially need to make $10,000, a little over $10,000 to hit that revenue to make that media buyer make sense.
At a minimum, like you're saying, at a minimum, right? This doesn't take into consideration all your fixed costs, all of that, like Cody's saying. That's a big bulk.
Yeah. So, but yeah, of course, this media buyer is not just servicing clients by himself. So this is where this is a real scenario. Like I'm hearing people in the market say, well, Kinship, you're only offering, what we offer as far as our team dynamics of creative lead and a media buyer. Well, this XYZ agency is offering me 2 media buyers and a senior strategist and a designer, or whether it be a designer, graphic designer, or a creative strategist, or whatever the case is. These are the 4 team makeup, and they're charging us $4,000, right? So from a conservative standpoint, we've already broken down the junior media buyers, their salary, their monthly with burden, right? Like the 30% markup on that individual employee and what the revenue goal needs to be on that individual person. But now you add in a senior strategist and this 100K salary, right? And this 100K salary senior strategist, I pretty much guarantee you they're not just servicing that client. They don't have multiple of these people. They're probably servicing the entire roster at this point, or at least a good percentage of that roster. And then a designer at a 70K salary. So what you see here is just basically monthly with their burden. And what I mean by burden is just their additional costs to keep them as an employee, healthcare benefits, etc. What we mentioned earlier. So the total team cost on this is $32,500. So again, looking for that 30% minimum margin on this pod, we're looking at $46,429 just to make that pod make sense.
Yeah, I mean, just to touch on this real quick, just because this exercise is for, brands out there and, letting you under the hood of agency economics. This 30% margin literally is an agency that does charity, I feel like, just about, just because they are literally making no margin at all. Because again, the fact that this is, let's define margin here for what's in the sheet. It's really just only taking into consideration the employee's cost and the benefits, like Cody has said there, and the costs associated with that. There's so many other costs that fall on the line item of fixed costs, platform fees,
or even the pod profitability, right? Like your softwares.
Yeah. Your platform fees and all the things that are part of your fixed cost, to where, agency margin only being 30% on, the cost of that employee, let alone all the other line items within fixed costs. This agency is making $0, if not going into the red. And this is a little bit charity, but it goes into this ultimately drives home the point that Cody's ultimately going to get to. So I'll let you chime in. I just wanted to say how conservative this is.
Right. Well, I mean, it's kind of breaking up the point of this is on assuming like all of their deal flow is coming from referrals. So they're not spending money to acquire those people. That's on the assumption that they're not actually paying those referral fees, where that would be under, customer acquisition costs. They're like, so it's agency contribution margin, but then there's like the fixed costs better be just like
bare minimum.
The agency like owner compensation, essentially, right? Like, because all these other stuff is accounted for in this pod profitability. For you to be making any money, or you
Yeah.
need to be having 100 of these clients, right? Like at this point,
Yes.
you need to be making way more. So I think to your point, like this 30% margin, contribution margin essentially is super conservative.
Yes.
But you'll see the implications of this though down here. So like if you're going to charge, and this is again, folks, this is coming from a real, I'm of course not going to be naming the agency, but this is a real example of people making decisions of I'm getting a team of 4 for $4,000 for 2 media buyers, a senior strategist, and a designer. Again, I of course don't know the salaries of these people, but like Google is our friend, ChatGPT is our friend to understand like just conservative what these people cost and the minimum margin that you probably need to be make. But what does that look like? What does this shake out to be? So at 46,000, a little 46 and a half essentially at a client monthly fee at 4,000, you need to have a minimum of 12 clients to actually make that make sense.
And just a real quick, just to make sure the viewers understand that 46,000 comes from making, 30% margin on the cost of that full team. So 32.5 times 1.3 is where that 46 comes from. Like how much revenue you'd want that team to make. And again, only making that much, it's not much. They probably need to make a lot more than this. So these numbers are all very conservative.
Yep. So now at this 2 junior media buyers, a senior strategist and a designer, on the assumption that the senior strategist is on just these 12 accounts, which I guarantee that is not the case. Maybe the designer is, maybe the 2 media buyers are. You're essentially, there's 160 hours in a month for each of these 4 people. And you just go hours per client, 13 hours, basically a percentage of attention split, 8%, right? So the question starts to become, I think, well, one, let that sink in. Like you're getting 13 hours from a entry level, fresh out of college person. You're getting an absolute maximum of 8% of each team member's attention. So not even 2 full days of work. Like essentially my question for people listening to this, if you're going to be making decisions on price, is ask yourself, like, can someone transform your business working on it for just 13 hours a month? Like while juggling 11 other clients. I think that gets down to the question when you start looking at the economics of this. And to Taylor's point of what you're bringing up, this is super conservative. So in order for them to be a real business and try to scale their agency, they're not going to be wanting 30% margin contribution wise. They're going to want 40, 50, 60. So now all this numbers just doubles and gets a whole lot worse. It's not 12 clients, it's 24 clients. In order to just multiply this to make it even more of an effect, right? Or do these media buyers actually make more than that? The senior strategists make more than that? Like it gets really a lot worse really quickly when you actually start taking this from a conservative standpoint to probably what's more realistic in terms of the agency contribution margin.
I'm interested. Let's just do this exercise real quick. Scroll down a touch and just plug in. Oh no, sorry. Go up, back up. Instead of 32,500 going to 46,429, like I think something probably more realistic for the industry averages would probably be about 6,500, like 65,000. Sorry. And could you plug that
And
into row
revenue?
20? Yeah, yeah, where it's like 50%. And like just to show you guys what that means for the minimum clients needed. Like, what does that ultimately go to? This divided by that? Yeah, ouch.
16.25 clients. Yeah.
Like that, and that's probably like the average here, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And if they're only going, this wouldn't be the 30% margin would be charity work, but they'd be doing you a disservice with that charity. And so this is even getting worse, like Cody's saying. Like they're spending no time on you guys. You're basically getting an AI bot, and they probably don't even have enough money to afford a good AI bot to do the work for you here. And I don't know how many client calls they're getting from this, but it can't be good.
Yeah. At Kinship, we're deliberately structuring our teams and pricing to ensure like we're getting real results for our clients. I think I know we charge premium compared to the market rate. But I think this allows, and Taylor chime in, like this allows a responsible number of accounts, like not the industry's pack 'em in approach, which is what you just saw with agency economics that are so low. In order for them to be a real business that's not going to go out of business next month, at a minimum, like this is 12 to 16 clients on that pod, right? And so again, going back to my question, you need to ask yourself, like, can that team take me and help me achieve my goals quicker, more efficiently, and help me achieve those goals more sustainably at just 13 hours a month, 8% of an attention span, while working with on 15 to 12 other clients.
Right. No, 100%. Yeah, it's not going to be possible for these people that are charging you guys hardly anything to actually spend any sort of quality time towards your brand to give you a quality service. No chance.
Yeah. So I mentioned that story earlier that I got an email from a prospect who declined our services back in January. They went with a cheaper agency, even cheaper than 4,000. Again, I don't know how many people were on their account. When he said we were going to go with the cheaper route, I said best of luck, and I'll check back in a few months. And again, his quote for quote was, "Great people, just didn't know as much as anyone on our team on any topic we discussed, and we know very little when it comes to meta." And here's the kicker. Listen to the next part. It just felt like every week there was a confusing new metric, best performing ad, shiny object, and zero insight into the big picture. I'm sure you see a lot of that. And I told him, we're recording a podcast tomorrow on exactly this. Like, this is the exact pattern that we see over and over. Like, brands choosing the cheaper option, waste months of opportunity, and then realize too late what's actually happening. And that essentially is like the hook of this entire episode, like taking the best deal is the worst deal for your brand. Because that's the real cost, right? Like we're talking about like opportunity costs, like waste of time, right? Like 3 to 6 months down the line, you end up being more expensive potentially.
Yeah. And not even only just the time that you get from this person, right? But at the end of the day, we keep continuing to say you get what you pay for. Like if you're going to hire someone for $4,000 per month, there's no way you're getting any sort of elevated service, and you're hiring someone to execute, right? They're going to execute the strategy that you inevitably give them, because that's not enough money for that person to be an actual strategist. No way. They'd have a different job and they'd be making more money, And so if you want someone to come in and lead, then you need to hire someone that's a strategist and do strategy. Because the reality of the situation here, especially within our space, as it continues to transform and evolve, like AI bots are going to be able to do the bare minimum for a lot of these things.
Sure.
And this is where I think this doesn't lead to the end of agency. This leads to like new life to the agency world, in my opinion, where it becomes all about strategy. And that's where the value lies, right? So do you want someone to come to lead you, or are you just trying to hire someone to lead yourself and you think you already know it all? And not to like challenge that, but like that's what you're saying you're doing at that point. If you hire someone for that amount of money, hey, you're just hiring someone to execute your plan of action, and you know everything, and it's a one man, or one woman team here to make things happen.
Well, it kind of just goes to any hire, right? Like if you're going to make a hire, let them do their thing. Otherwise, you're just paying for an expensive puppet, right? Like you should be able to, there should be a level of trust. Sometimes that's been some of our most contentious clients where transparently that's led to, us going separate ways, is because we invite them into our system. They buy in on the front end, but then actually what they didn't really want what we're offering, which is strategic growth and execution to help achieve that growth. And so what they really want is actually the $4,000 person. And again, here's the thing is like, if you feel like that's actually going to be most helpful and that's what you ultimately want, we're not going to get in your way. That's just never going to be us. And I don't think it's truly the value of hiring, whether an employee, a contractor, a freelancer, an agency. If you're just paying them to tell them what to do, you're just paying for an expensive puppet at that point. And you just want to be in control. But if you actually want to grow, you actually have to hire someone and let them do their thing. So,
and if you do that, the whole concept here in hiring an agency like Kinship, that I would say is a premium agency in the way that we're priced, right? But The whole concept of it is we ultimately want to be a cheaper cost for you, not in the dollar amount, but as a percentage of the revenue that we're driving, right? So even if the dollar amount is more money, don't get lost in that poverty mindset. We're trying to drive growth for your business to where our expense is cheaper as a percentage of your revenue, which, as we all know, that's all that matters. So let's go make that happen.
Let's go. Love that. How do you evaluate agency partners properly? I think that would be a good some questions. Is there anything that like comes to your mind? How do you avoid getting trapped into a bad agency relationship?
For sure. How do you set an ad account targets? How do you come to that conclusion?
I love that.
Immediately. If that doesn't get reverse engineered from your top line and overall profitability goals, if they don't tie those two together, you're not in. You're fired. Like
You're
immediately,
fired
step
before you're
one.
hired.
Yeah. If they can't answer the question of how to set their in-ad account target, tying it to your top line revenue, overall profitability, they do not deserve a seat at the first interview.
Let's
That's a
go. That's number
non-starter.
one.
Number one, if they get to question number two, okay, this is where we're at, right? How do we achieve unlocked growth than what we've previously done? Take me through every single one of the things that would lead to that. What's their creative strategy? What's their offer strategy? What's their input on the other aspects of the inputs that lead to the outputted forecast on LTV? How can they impact that on their end? What are all the ways that this agency that you're hiring is going to impact, unlock growth on top line revenue and overall profitability and the goals that you have? So not only understanding the connection between target setting and overall profitability and top line revenue, but how does that agency actually impact that? And what's their plan of action to do that?
I would say a very practical question is how many clients will my team be handling? Which is a common question. Like it's not like abnormal. I'm sure many brand owners have asked that of agencies, but if they dance around this question or won't give you a straight number, run away, run far. At Kinship, we'll tell you exactly who's working on your account. We'll tell you how many clients, our goal. So that's a big one. Like for the exact reason of what we just laid out. Like if you hear 12 to 15 to 16, like again, anything over 10, anything over 8, like you should probably be running.
I would 100% agree with that. I think a question that people ask is on comms sometimes too, or at least on my end, there are some clients, well, I just want daily messages. Just know there is a certain level of comms that should be had, right? But there's a balance there. Like the more time that people spend on comms with a brand, the less time they have on spending towards
Strategically
strategy.
thinking about your business.
Yes. And so it's like, listen, there's only so much time in every single day. So the more that you're trying to get, feel TLC or for whatever reason, like excessive comms are definitely unnecessary. So don't get lost in the sauce of, oh, this agency committed to giving me daily comms. Well, that's going to be it's going to be sacrificing actual, execution.
I would say the second one is what's the average client budget your agency works with? I think understanding if you're going to be the average, if you're going to be well below average, if you're going to be like a big fish or a forgotten person at the agency, like if the average client spends 5x what you do, like guess who's getting priority attention, right? Like, and guess which pod you're going to? Again, going back to the example that you're going to. At Kinship, we'll take people that are well below our average, but I'm pretty transparent about that process. Like we see a great opportunity. There's usually upside for us to get involved. And we see scalability. We want kind of a piece of that. So there's some things around that.
Well, I mean, just on that point, just to double down on it, it kind of goes hand in hand, right? Like what's your billable? Like what's your average billable for a client? And it goes hand in hand with what you're saying. The bigger the client, probably the bigger the billable, right? So on and so forth. So if you're trying to fight for a far better deal than what you're currently being sold on, like you become less of a priority, right? Because in the finances of an agency too, we also look at the unit economics on not only on a per employee basis, but we look at it on a per brand basis. Like how much money are we making on each client based on their billable and how much cost goes into each of those clients. And so it really becomes an exercise of how much time goes towards this client, how much money are we making on this client, and you compare that across your entire agency list at the end of the day. So all of that is taken into consideration, and we would be lying if we said that doesn't influence where and who takes priority, right?
Of course. No, I mean, agencies aren't charities unless the one that you just saw on our screen share. They clearly are. Another question is, Can you walk me through your process when a campaign isn't performing? I think that is huge. Like, what are you guys doing? Like, of course, in the sales cycle, yeah, this all sounds great. You guys have a confidence level. We both want to work together. Stuff happens. My business isn't perfect. What's happening when stuff's not going right? What are you guys doing to help solve the problem? I think that tells you everything about how proactive they'll be with your money.
Yeah, it's good. In my mind, it just comes down to how well do these, whoever you're hiring, understand your business holistically, like
Sure.
outside of just, the ad account and outside of just, acquisition. Like you need to have whoever you hire needs to have an understanding of the business holistically, like all of the levers that lead to the output and revenue. Because if one of these other levers change, they need to understand the implications of that is for new customer acquisition. For example, cost delivery goes higher, or fixed costs go higher, or whatever. Like we need to probably get more efficient on the acquisition side of things to offset that, to level up to the same profitability. Like they need to have a full understanding of the full business and all the levers and inputs that lead to the outputted top line revenue and overall profitability goal at the end of the day.